always thought betrayal would feel like a punch to the gut. Sharp, sudden, undeniable. But it doesn't. It slips in quietly, dressed in the clink of wine glasses and the hum of Sunday family dinners. My name's Emily, and at 18, I learned family loyalty comes with a price tag. $100,000, to be exact. The cost of my college dreams. It was a chilly evening in our Chicago suburb. The kind where the wind rattles the windows, but inside, Mom's roast filled the house with warmth. I sat at the dining table, picking at my mashed potatoes, half listening to Dad talk about his new client at the insurance firm. Mom, Diane, kept refilling her wine glass, her fingers fidgeting like she was unraveling a secret. Dad, Richard, avoided my eyes, staring at his plate like it held the answers to life. And then there was Aunt Laura, lounging at the head of the table like she owned the place, her perfume sharp enough to cut through the gravy. "Emily, honey," Mom said, her voice wobbling like a tightrope walker. "We need to talk about something important." My fork froze midair. Important talks didn't happen at the dining table. They happened in Dad's study, behind closed doors. Like when Grandma died, or when Dad got laid off 2 years ago. I glanced at Aunt Laura, who was smiling like she'd just won a raffle. That's when I knew. Something was wrong. "Let's go to the study," Dad mumbled, pushing his chair back. My stomach twisted, but I followed. The study smelled of old books and Dad's aftershave, a room reserved for life-altering news. Mom sat on the leather couch, clutching her hands. Dad stood by the window, staring out at the neighbor's dog sniffing the fence. Aunt Laura perched on the desk, her red nails tapping a rhythm that made my skin crawl. "Emily," Mom started, then stopped, like the words were stuck in her throat. Aunt Laura didn't hesitate. "Your cousin Sophie got into Yale," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "A real game-changer for the family." I nodded, confused. "That's awesome. I'm still waiting to hear from Northwestern and Illinois Tech." The silence that followed was heavier than the snow piling up outside. Dad finally spoke, each word measured like he was defusing a bomb. "We've made a decision." "About resources." "Resources?" The word felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "Your college fund," Mom blurted, her eyes glistening. "We're giving it to Sophie." The world didn't crash. The walls didn't shake. But something inside me clicked, like a lens snapping into focus. "My fund." My voice was steady, even though my hands trembled under the table. "The $100,000? And Laura leaned forward, her smile all teeth. "Yale's an investment, Emily. For the whole family. Sophie's got potential to put our name on the map." I blinked. "And my future? What about Northwestern? Illinois Tech?" Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "You're practical, sweetie," she said, like it was a compliment. "You can start at community college. Work part-time. You're so good at figuring things out." "Unlike Sophie," Aunt Laura added, her voice dripping with pity. "She needs to focus on her studies. No distractions." I stood, my chair scraping the hardwood floor. "So, because I'm capable, I get screwed? Because I'm responsible, I lose everything?" Dad raised a hand, weak as a whisper. "You're not losing anything, Emily. You're helping the family." "Family?" The word tasted like ash. I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Does Sophie even know you're handing her my future on a silver platter?" Aunt Laura's smile didn't waver. "She's always looked up to you." I turned to the window, watching the neighbor's dog chase its tail in the snow. They kept talking logistics, plans, how I'd understand one day. I tuned them out, my mind racing. "How much?" I spun back, my voice cutting through their chatter. Mom blinked. "What? How much of my fund are you giving her?" Dad cleared his throat, looking at Mom like she could save him. "All of it," he said. $100,000. That number hit like a slap. 10 years of savings. Every birthday check from Grandpa, every summer job scooping ice cream at the mall. Gone. Emily, Mom started, but I raised a hand. "I need air." I walked out, past the living room where Sophie sat on the couch, texting, oblivious that her Yale acceptance had just obliterated my dreams. In my room, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. The girl looking back wasn't broken. She was pissed. They thought they were teaching me about family loyalty. They were wrong. They were about to learn about consequences. I opened my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keys. If they thought I'd roll over and take this, they didn't know me at all. Betrayal doesn't just break you. It lights a fire. A quiet, burning need to prove them wrong. That night, after they ripped my future away, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in my room, the Chicago suburbs silent outside my window, and I made a choice. If my family thought I'd fade into the background, they were about to get a wake-up call. My name's Emily, and I was done being the practical one. My phone buzzed on the desk, cutting through the hum of my thoughts. A message from Sarah, my computer science teacher. "How'd family dinner go?" she asked, her words glowing on the screen. I stared at it, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. How do you sum up the moment your parents hand your dreams to someone else? I typed back, short and sharp. "Can we meet tomorrow? I need business advice." Her reply was instant. "Coffee shop on Michigan Avenue. 4 p.m. Perfect. The next day, I walked into the Bean and Leaf, a cozy spot in downtown Chicago where the smell of espresso clung to the air. Sarah was already there, her laptop open, her glasses perched on her nose like she was about to solve world hunger. She'd been my teacher since sophomore year, the one who saw something in me when I was just a kid debugging code in the school lab. Now, she was about to become something more. My mentor. My partner in crime. "So," Sarah said, stirring her latte, "what's this about business advice? You look like you're plotting a heist." I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "They gave my college fund to Sophie. $100,000. For Yale." Sarah's spoon stopped mid-stir. "Your fund? The one you've been saving since you were 8. I nodded, my throat tight. "They said Sophie's their investment. I'm supposed to go to community college. Work part-time. Figure it out." Sarah leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "And you're not here to vent. You've got a plan." She knew me too well. I pulled out my notebook, pages scribbled with ideas I'd been turning over since last night. "I want to build an online tutoring platform. STEM-focused. Structured courses, progress tracking, personalized plans. Something different from the generic apps out there." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "The tutoring market's crowded, Emily. What makes yours stand out?" I slid my notebook across the table. "Most platforms just pair tutors with students. Mine's a system. Think Khan Academy meets Netflix. Curated content, data-driven feedback, and a focus on science, tech, engineering, math. I've got the skills to code it. I've been tutoring since I was 15. I know what students need." Sarah flipped through my notes, her lips twitching into a smile. "Either you're a genius or you're completely nuts." I grinned, the first real smile since dinner. "Maybe both." We spent 2 hours hashing out details. Sarah pointed out flaws: server costs, user acquisition, marketing. I countered with solutions, my brain firing on all cylinders. By the time we left, I had a rough business plan and a fire in my chest that no one could snuff out. "You're serious about this," Sarah said, pulling on her coat. "This isn't just about money, is it?" I looked at the Chicago skyline, the Sears Tower cutting through the dusk. "They think I'm nothing. I'm going to show them what nothing can do." That night, I enrolled in community college. Not because I wanted to, but because it was practical. A way to keep my parents off my back while I built something bigger. I signed up for a full-course low calculus, physics, computer science. By day, I was a student. By night, I was a coder, a dreamer, a girl with a grudge. My bedroom became mission control. Laptops hummed, sticky notes covered my walls, and empty coffee cups piled up like trophies. I started small. A prototype website, coded from scratch. I reached out to old tutoring clients, offering free trial courses to test the platform. Word spread. A dozen students signed up. Then 50. Then 100. Every notification felt like a middle finger to Aunt Laura's smug smile, to Mom's trembling apologies, to Dad's weak excuses. I wasn't just building a business. I was building a weapon. Sarah checked in weekly, her texts a mix of encouragement and tough love. Your UI needs work, she'd write. Or, don't burn out, kid. But burning out wasn't an option. Sleep was optional. I'd lie awake at 3 a.m., the glow of my screen lighting up my face, tweaking algorithms, answering student emails, dreaming of the day I'd walk back into that dining room and make them choke on their words. 3 weeks in, I got my first paying customer. A high school junior in Evanston, desperate for AP Physics help. She paid $50 for a month-long course. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Proof I didn't need their money. Their approval. Their anything. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. The same girl from that awful night. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was dangerous. They thought they'd taught me about family. They hadn't taught me a damn thing. But I was about to teach them. Starting with lesson 1, underestimate me at your own risk. 3 months after that gut punch of a family dinner, I wasn't the same Emily. I was a machine. A force. A secret empire builder, running on coffee, spite, and a Wi-Fi connection that never quit. By day, I aced my classes at Lincoln Community College, keeping my 4.0 GPA like a badge of honor. By night, I coded, marketed, and scaled my online tutoring platform, watching it grow faster than I'd ever dreamed. My family? They thought I was figuring things out. They had no idea I was rewriting the rules. My bedroom in our Chicago suburb was now a war room. Laptops glowed on my desk, their fans humming like a battle hymn. Sticky notes plastered the wall, feature ideas, bug fixes, revenue goals. My platform, LearnSphere, had hit $100,000 in monthly revenue. 6 figures. From nothing. Every dollar was a brick in the wall I was building between me and their betrayal. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I met Sarah at the Bean and Leaf again, the Chicago skyline glittering through the coffee shop's windows. She slid into the booth, her laptop already open, her eyes scanning my latest analytics dashboard. You're insane, she said, not looking up. $100,000 a month? In 3 months. I shrugged, sipping my black coffee. Sleep's overrated. She snorted. You're overrated. This growth is nuts, but your server crashed twice last week. You need infrastructure. And a lawyer. She was right. LearnSphere was bursting at the seams. Thousands of students, high schoolers, college kids, even professionals were signing up for my STEM courses. My platform wasn't just tutoring. It was a learning ecosystem. Video lessons, real-time quizzes, AI-driven study plans. I'd coded most of it myself, but the demand was outpacing my duct tape solutions. I'm working on it, I said. Hired 2 freelancers to optimize the back end. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Freelancers? You need a team, Emily. This isn't a side hustle anymore. It's a company. The word hit me like a spark. A company. Not a revenge project. Not a way to stick it to Aunt Laura and her Yale princess, Sophie. A real, world-changing company. I leaned forward, my voice low. What's it take to make it official? Sarah grinned, like she'd been waiting for this. Incorporation. Patents. A proper budget. And probably a better office than your bedroom. I laughed, sharp and quick. 1 step at a time. I'm not moving to Silicon Valley yet. That night, I dove into research. LLCs, trademarks, tax codes. My brain hurt, but every article, every forum post, felt like a weapon. I wasn't just building LearnSphere to prove them wrong. I was building it to outlast them. To make sure no one could ever take my future again. By 2 a.m., I'd drafted a plan to incorporate, my fingers flying over the keyboard as notifications pinged. Another 50 students signed up. Another $1,000 in the bank. I smiled at my reflection in the dark window. Dangerous didn't even begin to cover it. But family dinners were still a thing. Mandatory, like a court summons. I sat through another one, Mom's lasagna heavy in my stomach as Sophie prattled on about Yale. My literature professor says my essay was, like, groundbreaking, she said, twirling her fork like a baton. Aunt Laura beamed. Isn't she incredible? I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to say my calculus course had a 98% student satisfaction rate across 3 states. Instead, I smiled, sweet as poison. How's the social scene, Sophie? Any epic parties? Oh my God, you have no idea, Sophie gushed. Last weekend, I cut her off, my voice dripping with innocence. Sounds like you need to focus on your studies. The table went quiet. Mom shot me a look, but I just took a sip of water, my phone buzzing in my pocket. I glanced at it under the table. A notification from LearnSphere's dashboard. 75 new signups for my physics course. For grand in revenue. More than Dad's monthly paycheck. Community college going okay, Emily? Dad asked, his voice tentative, like he was stepping on thin ice. It's fine, I said, chewing garlic bread. I'm managing. Aunt Laura chimed in, her tone patronizing. Not everyone's cut out for top universities. Practicality's a gift. My fists clenched under the table, nails digging into my palms. Practicality. Like it was a consolation prize for having my future stolen. I excused myself, claiming I needed the bathroom. In the hallway, I checked my phone again. The new signups pushed my monthly revenue to $120,000. I was out-earning everyone at that table, and they didn't have a clue. I leaned against the wall, the hum of the dining room fading. This wasn't just about money. It was about power. Control. The kind they'd never see coming. Later, I met Sarah at her apartment, a cramped space in Wicker Park she'd turned into a makeshift office for us. Your server's down again, she said, tossing me a soda. Growth's killing you. I slumped into a chair, exhausted but wired. I know. It's faster than I planned. She turned her laptop toward me, a spreadsheet glowing on the screen. You're at 6 figures monthly, Emily. Time to get serious. Incorporate. Hire a CTO. Protect yourself. I stared at the numbers, my heart racing. 6 figures. A year ago, I was scooping ice cream for minimum wage. Now, I was running a business that could bury their expectations in cash. Okay, I said, my voice steady. Let's do it. But we keep it quiet. They don't get to know. Not yet. Sarah nodded, a glint in her eye. You're playing a long game, aren't you? I smiled, cold and certain. They taught me how. The thing about empires is they don't just rise. They expose cracks in everything else. 6 months after I started LearnSphere, my secret was safe, but my family's facade was crumbling. I sat at another mandatory Sunday dinner in our Chicago suburb, the smell of Mom's pot roast thick in the air. The table felt like a stage, and tonight, the spotlight wasn't on me. It was on Sophie. Or rather, her absence. Aunt Laura's fork trembled as she spoke, her voice brittle as a dry leaf. Sophie's taking a break from Yale, she announced, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Just a semester. To find herself. My fork froze over my plate, a green bean speared midair. Mom and Dad exchanged a look, the kind that screamed trouble. Find herself? Dad asked, his tone cautious, like he was poking a beehive. What does that mean? Laura's smile was all edges. She's been under so much pressure. Classes, social commitments. It's overwhelming. I took a sip of water, hiding my smirk. Parties must be exhausting, I muttered. Mom's glare could have melted steel, but I didn't care. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another LearnSphere notification. I'd just hired my 25th employee, and my platform was pulling in $1.2 million a month. Their drama felt like a sideshow. What about the money? Dad's voice cracked, the same desperate edge I'd heard when he lost his job years ago. The table went silent, heavy as a storm cloud. Laura whispered, "It's gone. $100,000. Tuition, housing, lifestyle expenses." Sophie needed to fit in, Laura said, her voice fading. She's in Tulum now, finding her spiritual center. I couldn't hold it in. Spiritual center? I laughed, sharp and cold. That's what we call blowing 100 grand in less than a year? Mom snapped my name, Emily, but Aunt Laura's eyes narrowed, her mask slipping. You've always been jealous of Sophie's opportunities, she hissed. I leaned forward, my voice low. Jealous of what? Her talent for torching other people's futures. The air crackled. Dad's fork clattered onto his plate. Emily, that's enough. But it wasn't. Not even close. I stood, my chair scraping the hardwood. You don't get it, do you? I'm working full-time, taking a full-course load at community college. What do I know about pressure? I turned to Laura. You pushed Sophie to Yale, pushed my parents to give her my fund. And now it's gone. Poof. Like it was nothing. I walked out, but not before catching Dad's quiet question to Laura. What about paying it back? My heart pounded as I slipped into the hallway, leaning against the wall. Pay it back? Good luck. Laura's finances were a house of cards, and I knew it. I'd done my homework, public records, whispers from old family friends. She was drowning in debt, hiding it behind her designer bags and country club smiles. In my room, I opened my laptop, the glow of LearnSphere's dashboard lighting up my face. We'd just hit 1.2 million in monthly revenue. My platform was a beast, with 50,000 students worldwide, from Chicago to Chennai. I'd opened an office in the Loop, a small space I shared with Sarah, but it was mine. My empire. My revenge. I scrolled through the numbers, each digit a reminder. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their approval. I was untouchable. But the dinner table lingered in my mind. Mom's worried eyes. Dad's trembling voice. They weren't just broke, they were broken. I overheard them later, whispering in the kitchen. The second mortgage, Mom said, her voice shaking. We took it out for Sophie's emergencies. Laura swore she'd pay us back. Dad sighed, heavy as a stone. We're behind on payments, Diane. We could lose the house. The irony hit me like a brick. Here I was, a secret millionaire, watching my parents drown in the mess they'd made. Part of me wanted to let them sink. They'd chosen Sophie. They'd chosen Laura's lies. But another part, the part that still remembered Mom's hugs, Dad's bad jokes, itched to fix it. Not for free, though. If I was going to save them, it'd be on my terms. I texted Sarah. Need to talk. Big moves. Her reply was instant. Bean and leaf. Tomorrow. Noon. I closed my laptop, staring at my reflection in the dark window. The girl looking back wasn't just angry. She was calculating. They thought they'd taught me about sacrifice. They were wrong. They'd taught me about consequences. And I was about to teach them right back. I lay awake that night, the hum of my laptop fan my only company. LearnSphere wasn't just a business anymore. It was a weapon, a shield, a way to rewrite the story they'd tried to force on me. Sophie's collapse was just the beginning. The real show was coming, and I was writing the script. The thing about secrets is they weigh more than you expect. 6 months into building LearnSphere, I was carrying $1 million empire in my back pocket, and my family didn't have a clue. But their secrets? Those were heavier. They were cracking the foundation of our Chicago suburban home, and I was the only one who saw the fault lines. I wasn't just playing a game anymore. I was rewriting the rules, and it was time to show my hand. It started with Mom. She found me in my room, her face pale, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater like she was unraveling her own nerves. Emily, she whispered, sitting on my bed. We're in trouble. I closed my laptop, the glow of LearnSphere's dashboard fading. What kind of trouble? Her voice broke. Financial trouble. We took out a second mortgage to cover Sophie's expenses. Laura promised she'd pay us back, but now she trailed off, staring at the floor. I leaned back, my heart pounding but my face calm. How bad is it? Mom's laugh was hollow, like glass about to shatter. We might lose the house. We can't even afford a financial advisor. We're barely scraping by for groceries. The irony burned. Here I was, a secret millionaire, my platform pulling in $1.2 million a month, while my parents drowned in their own choices. I could have let them sink. Part of me wanted to, but another part, the part that still remembered Dad's bedtime stories, had other plans. Maybe I can help, I said, my voice steady. Mom patted my hand, her smile sad. That's sweet, honey. But you're just a student. This is beyond you. We need a miracle. I bit back a smirk. A miracle. Or maybe just the daughter they'd underestimated. I didn't say anything. Not yet. The stage wasn't set. The next day, I met Sarah at the Bean and Leaf, the Chicago skyline sharp against a gray sky. She slid an envelope across the table, her eyes gleaming. They want to buy LearnSphere, she said. Big tech firm. $150 million. I stared at the offer letter, the zeros blurring together. $150 million. Enough to never work again. Enough to bury my family's mistakes in cash. But I pushed the letter back. Not yet. I'm not selling. Sarah raised an eyebrow. This is about them, isn't it? Your family. I didn't answer, but my silence was loud enough. Counteroffer, I said. I keep majority control. They can invest, but I call the shots. Sarah grinned, like she'd expected this. You're playing a dangerous game, Emily. I shrugged, sipping my coffee. They taught me how. That night, I called a family meeting. Not in Dad's study. Not in our cramped dining room. I invited them to my new Placia penthouse in Chicago's Loop, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a painting. I'd bought it last month, cash, but they didn't know that. They didn't know anything. When they walked in, their jaws dropped. Mom's purse slipped from her hand. Dad's eyes darted to the modern art on the walls, the sleek furniture, the view. Aunt Laura's laugh was nervous. There's been a mistake. This can't be yours. I led them to the dining room, where Sarah was already seated, her laptop closed. Hope you like Thai fusion, I said, gesturing to the catered spread. Dad's voice was tight. Emily, what's going on? I took my seat at the head of the table, folding my hands. Remember when you gave my college fund to Sophie? $100,000. You said I was good at figuring things out. Aunt Laura waved a hand, dismissive. This is impossible. You're a student. Actually, Sarah cut in, her voice calm but sharp. It's impressive. Emily built a multi-million-dollar edtech company while acing community college. The silence was deafening. Dad choked on his water. Mom's hands trembled. Laura's face went pale. I opened my laptop, pulling up LearnSphere's website. We've got 50,000 students worldwide. Big tech companies are bidding to buy us out. Oh, and I graduated early from Illinois Tech's online engineering program. Not community college. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Why didn't you tell us? I leaned forward, my eyes locking on hers. Would you have believed me? You decided who I was 6 months ago. The practical one. The one who'd understand when you stole her future. Laura bristled. We didn't steal anything. I slid the buyout offer across the table, $150 million. Dad's face went white. This is more than Sophie spent, I said. More than this penthouse. More than your second mortgage. How do you know about the mortgage? Mom gasped. I smiled, cold and certain. I know everything. The loans, the credit card debt, Laura's late payments. I've done my homework. Laura stood, her chair scraping. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to this. Sit down, I said, my voice like steel. You haven't heard my offer. Dad looked up, his hands shaking. Offer. I nodded, leaning back. I can bail you out. Clear the mortgage. Pay off the debts. But there are terms. My terms. Sarah raised her glass, a glint in her eye. This is what you call a power move. Laura stammered, you can't be serious. I opened a folder, my voice steady. Oh, I am. Who wants to hear the conditions? Their faces shock, fear, disbelief were worth every sleepless night. every line of code, every moment I'd spent building something they couldn't touch. Revenge wasn't just sweet. It was surgical. Power isn't in the money. It's in the terms. The moment I laid out my conditions in that penthouse dining room, I wasn't just saving my family. I was rewriting their world. My voice was calm, but every word landed like a hammer. They'd stolen my future. Now I was taking control of theirs. And Chicago's skyline, glittering through my floor-to-ceiling windows, was my witness. The folder I slid across the table was thick with paperwork. Full financial transparency, I said, my eyes sweeping from Mom to Dad to Aunt Laura. Monthly audits. Every purchase over $500 needs my approval. Mom's hands shook, her wine glass forgotten. Dad stared at the folder like it was a bomb. Laura's face twisted, her usual polish cracking. And I added, my voice sharp, no more family dinners unless I call them. No more Sophie show. No more lies. Laura slammed the folder down, her nails clicking against the table. This is outrageous. You can't expect us to live like prisoners. I leaned back, my smile cold. It's reasonable, Laura. Considering the alternative is bankruptcy. Or worse. Sarah, sitting quietly, chimed in, her tone dry. The interest rate here is better than any bank would offer. Especially with your credit scores. Dad's head snapped up. You checked our credit? I nodded, unfazed. I did my homework. Just like you told me to, Dad. When you said I'd figure things out. The silence was thick, heavy as the Thai fusion cooling on their plates. Mom's eyes glistened, but she didn't speak. Laura opened her mouth, then closed it, like a fish gasping for air. The doorbell rang, right on cue. That'll be my lawyer, I said, standing. She'll walk us through the paperwork. Jessica, my attorney, was all business, her briefcase snapping open like a gunshot. These terms are non-negotiable, she said, laying out contracts. Emily will clear the second mortgage and all outstanding debts. In exchange, you agree to financial oversight and behavioral conditions. Mom finally spoke, her voice small. Behavioral conditions? Like we're children. I met her eyes, unflinching. Like people who made terrible choices. Choices I'm fixing. Supervision's the price. Laura scoffed. And if we refuse? I opened my laptop, pulling up a foreclosure notice. Your house is gone next month, Mom and Dad. Laura, your credit card debt hits collections. And the IRS is sniffing around your consulting business. Her face went white. How do you know that? I shrugged. Resources. Unlike some people, I use them wisely. The next hour was signatures and notarized papers. Page by page, I watched their control slip away, just like my college fund had vanished that Sunday night. But this wasn't just revenge. It was reconstruction. I turned to Laura. One more thing. Sophie's coming home. Her eyes widened. What? I nodded. I'm buying her a one-way ticket from Tulum. She gets a job. She pays her debts. No more running. She's not ready, Laura protested. I cut her off. She's been ready her whole life. You just never let her prove it. After they left, Sarah poured us both a drink, the city lights twinkling outside. That was brutal, she said, handing me a glass. I took a sip, the burns steadying me. It was necessary. They need to learn. She raised an eyebrow. Learn what? I smiled, my reflection sharp in the window. That responsibility isn't punishment. It's power. 2 weeks later, Sophie landed at O'Hare. I picked her up alone, standing at the international arrivals gate. She walked out, tanned but tired, her designer clothes swapped for a faded hoodie. Emily, she blinked, confused. Where's Mom? I pointed to the exit. Your welcome wagon's under new management. Let's go. In the car, I handed her a folder. Your new life. Job starts Monday. Administrative assistant at a real estate firm. $35,000 a year. She laughed, nervous. You're joking. My sunglasses cost more than that. I kept my eyes on the road. Not anymore. You'll live in an apartment I set up. Rent's deducted from your paycheck, along with payments for the $100,000 you burned. Her jaw dropped. You can't do this. I parked outside her new place, a modest building in Logan Square. I can. Your mom signed the papers. Take the deal or explain to the cops about those credit cards you opened in her name. Her eyes widened. How do you know that? I smirked. I know everything. Inside, her roommate, Claire, a no-nonsense med student, laid out the rules. Split utilities, groceries, no drama. Sophie stared at the small apartment, her suitcase dwarfed by reality. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I nodded to Claire. That's why you've got her. And mandatory life skills classes. You'll learn. Back in my penthouse, I caught Mom trying to sneak a purchase. Your credit card got declined, I said, sliding it across the kitchen counter. Want to explain the $500 dress for Sophie's welcome home? Mom flushed, caught. She needs something nice for her job. I opened my tablet, showing the budget. She needs to learn wants versus needs. Something you and Laura never taught her. Later, Sarah updated me at our Loop office. Your platform's at 60,000 students, she said. But your family's the real project. I laughed, bitter but proud. They're learning. Slowly, Mom and Dad started financial literacy classes. Laura canceled her country club membership. Sophie clocked in at 8 a.m. They hated it, but they were changing. And me? I was just getting started. Success isn't just about winning. It's about rewriting the story. A year after I turned my family's betrayal into a multimillion-dollar empire, I stood on a stage at Illinois Tech, my cap and gown crisp, my engineering degree earned in under 3 years. The dean called my name, Emily Carter, summa cum laude, and the crowd clapped. From the audience, Mom and Dad applauded politely, still clueless that I'd built a billion-dollar company while they thought I was just at community college. The irony was delicious. After the ceremony, Mom hugged me, her perfume familiar, but her words off-key. We're so proud, sweetie. A community college degree is nothing to sneer at. I caught Sarah's eye across the crowd. She was biting her lip, trying not to laugh. Thanks, Mom, I said, my voice smooth. Actually, there's something I need to tell you. Before I could, Aunt Laura's voice sliced through, sharp as her designer sunglasses, which probably cost more than Dad's car payment. Emily, is this the whole ceremony? So quaint. Laura, Dad said weakly, I didn't know you were coming. She blew a kiss, her smile all teeth. Family supports family. Speaking of, Sophie's launching a wellness blog from Tulum. Very exclusive. I raised an eyebrow, my tone innocent. Still finding herself? That's a long journey. Laura's smile faltered, but my phone buzzed before she could snap back. I stepped away to take the call. Buyout papers are ready, my lawyer, Jessica, said. You sure about the terms? I glanced at my family, oblivious to the storm coming. Absolutely. Send them over. Back with the group, Mom was planning a celebration. Maybe that new bistro in Evanston? Dad muttered. Too expensive. I cut in, my voice calm but firm. Actually, I'm hosting dinner. At my place. They stared. Your place. Mom frowned. But you live in a dorm. I smiled, letting the moment hang. Not anymore. I've got an apartment in the Loop, near the tech district. Dad blinked. How do you afford that? I waved a hand. That's part of what we'll discuss. 7 p.m. Sarah's coming. Your professor? Laura mocked, her tone dripping. What's she doing there? I corrected her, sharp and clear. My business partner. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. That night, I watched their faces as they stepped into my penthouse. The Chicago skyline sparkled through the windows, modern art glowed on the walls, and the furniture screamed money. Mom whispered, "This can't be right." Laura's jaw tightened, her heels clicking on the hardwood like a countdown. I led them to the dining room, where Sarah waited with a grin. Hope you like Japanese fusion, I said, gesturing to the catered spread. Dad's voice was tense. Emily, what's going on? I took my seat at the head of the table, my hands folded. Remember when you gave my college fund to Sophie? $100,000. You said I'd figure it out. Laura scoffed, waving a hand. This is absurd. Actually, Sarah said, her voice cutting through, it's incredible. Emily built a billion-dollar edtech company while finishing her degree in 3 years. The silence was electric. Dad choked on his sake. Mom's hands shook. Laura's face drained of color. I opened my laptop, pulling up LearnSphere's website. We've got 200,000 students worldwide. I just bought out a competitor. Total value? Over $1 billion. Mom's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. Would you have listened? You labeled me the practical one. The one who'd understand when you handed my future to Sophie. Laura bristled. We didn't steal anything. I slid the buyout offer across the table, $150 million for the competitor. Dad's hands trembled. This is more than Sophie spent, I said. More than this penthouse. More than your second mortgage. How do you know about the mortgage? Mom gasped. I smiled, cold and steady. I know everything. Your loans. Laura's offshore accounts. Her fake invoices. Laura stood, furious. You're lying. I pulled up a file on my tablet, my voice calm. Want me to send this to the IRS? Or we can talk truth. You didn't care about Sophie's education. You needed that money to cover your debts. You used your own daughter. Sophie, who'd been silent, looked up, her voice small. Mom, is that true? Laura's mask shattered, tears streaming. I was protecting our status. Our lifestyle. I leaned back, my voice soft but lethal. Your lies almost cost Mom and Dad their house. Sophie lost 2 years. Me? I should thank you. Your betrayal built this. Dad blinked, confused. Thank her. I nodded. If you hadn't stolen my fund, I might have never built LearnSphere. I motioned to the waiter. By the way, I'm the largest shareholder in both companies now. Papers sign next week. Mom's glass tipped, water spilling across the table. No one moved. $1 billion, Sophie whispered. I soaked up the mess with a napkin. Built from scratch. While you were in Tulum. I stood, my voice firm. Laura, forensic accountants visit you tomorrow. Sophie, you're promoted to project coordinator if you keep perfect attendance. Mom, Dad, the mortgage is paid off, but oversight continues. Laura's voice was bitter. What do you get out of this? I packed my tablet, my smile sharp. The satisfaction of watching you learn. Actions have consequences. Family doesn't steal from family. As I headed for the door, Dad called, Where are you going? I didn't look back. Board meeting. Some of us have empires to run. A year after I turned betrayal into a billion-dollar empire, my family wasn't just different, they were real. No more masks. No more lies. The Chicago skyline still glittered outside my penthouse, but the view inside was better. My family, once a house of cards, was rebuilding brick by painful brick. And I'd made sure they learned the cost of trust. Not with revenge, but with something harder, accountability. I sat in my loop office, the walls lined with awards: Forbes 30 Under 30, Tech Innovator of the Year. On my desk, a framed photo from last month's charity gala caught the light. Mom, Dad, Sophie, Laura, all in simple but sharp outfits, their smiles genuine, not staged. Sophie, now running LearnSphere's scholarship program, had just launched a youth outreach initiative for Chicago's South Side. Laura volunteered at a women's financial literacy center, helping others dodge the traps she'd fallen into. Dad was pitching a startup, his first real dream in years. Mom? She hadn't missed a budget deadline in months. The door opened, and Mom walked in, a spreadsheet tucked under her arm. Quarterly family budget report, she said, her voice steady. Ready for review. I leaned back, smiling. How's Laura? Sophie, trailing behind, answered. Therapy's helping. She's teaching a class on avoiding debt scams now. I nodded, thoughtful. Amazing what happens when you turn manipulation into motivation. Mom hesitated, then set an envelope on my desk. Found this in the attic. I opened it, my breath catching. My old college acceptance letters. Northwestern, Illinois Tech, Purdue. Mom's voice was soft. We made a terrible mistake, Emily. I picked up the Northwestern letter, its edges worn. You did. But look where it led. I opened my laptop, pulling up the family's financial report. Dad's credit score's the highest it's ever been. Sophie's got a savings account. Laura's helping women rebuild. You and Dad finally get the difference between enabling and supporting. Mom's eyes glistened. What about you? I closed the laptop, my smile soft but sure. I learned success isn't about power. It's about building something that lasts. Sarah appeared at the door, her grin wide. Ready for the board meeting? I turned to Mom. You good handling the family trust fund this quarter? She straightened, proud. Not a single error in 10 months. I hugged her. Then it's yours. After she left, Sarah sat down, her eyes sharp. When this started, I thought you just wanted to burn them down. I glanced at the gala photo. I did. But somewhere along the way, it became about building them up. Better. Stronger. I gathered my files, my voice steady. They had to fall apart to learn. Now, we're the family we pretended to be. Just with better math. Sarah laughed. Speaking of math, wait till they hear about your new initiative. I held up my tablet, the announcement ready. Free STEM education for 5,000 underprivileged kids. Starting next month. It was my legacy, not just for me, but for every kid who'd ever been underestimated. One step at a time. Later, at a family dinner I'd hosted at a revamped country club, I'd bought it. Tired of their elitist rules, Sophie raised a glass. To Emily. For giving us a second chance. Laura, quieter now, nodded. And for teaching us what family really means. Dad cleared his throat. I'm pitching my startup next week. Thanks to you, I'm not afraid to try. Mom squeezed my hand, her voice low. We're changing because of you. I stood, my glass raised. You're changing because you had to. Trust isn't free. Neither is family. The table went quiet, their faces soft but serious. I smiled, my voice clear. But hard work? That's worth more than any money. Outside, Chicago's lights twinkled, a city of second chances. Somewhere, a kid was signing up for my free STEM course, dreaming bigger than I ever did. As I left for a board meeting, Sarah caught up, her voice teasing. Still enjoying this? I glanced back at my family, their laughter echoing. Not enjoying. Building. My phone lit up with the scholarship program's first signups. Revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about creating something unbreakable from pain, from betrayal, from trust rebuilt on truth. I stepped into the conference room, ready to change more lives. Success wasn't just the best revenge. It was the only one that mattered.